Hey everybody, I haven't done a Periscope in a while, and I want to do one tonight for a very special reason, which is that we just got done recording an episode with Shuja Hager that is a comprehensive sort of examination of the entire stupid Jordan Peterson phenomenon that I hope will be the last word that we have to say about his tedious ass. But after we ended the show, I thought that there were a few things I kind of forgot to say that I need to kind of express to really kind of put a fucking nail in the coffin and move on. Because while we had some good critiques, I think, of the motherfucker, one thing we didn't do was answer the real seminal question. Okay, if he's full of shit, and one of the reasons he's such a poor thinker is filling this void is because the lack of explanations that are different than what he's putting out, then what is the alternative? What's the alternative to his particular brand of moonshine? And I didn't really get to it on the show, so I wanted to put it out here right now. Hopefully this can get sent around and people can listen to it if they want to try to have one of their Peterson fans get moving away from his bullshit. And so I just wanted to say, what is the answer to, well, what do you propose as the alternative? What is the alternative to the Peterson snake oil? And I think we address that by first noting that there's a fundamental delusion at the base of the entire project he's doing, and the minds of all of the people who are fans of his. Because what happens is that he is popular because he flatters the worldview of kids who grew up in the isolation and cut off mental world of postmodern America, of exurban, internet-connected American youth. And that is this idea of the individual as the primal and only locus of meaning in the world. That you as an individual are the sum total of the world. And that you have to negotiate the world as this separate being amongst a functionally unknowable and certainly untrustworthy others. And that's really what he's talking about when he's talking about order and chaos. Yes, it's a weird misogynistic thing where he's talking about order is the masculine mind, masculine self, and chaos is feminine or whatever. But what he's really doing is he's just recapitulating Lacan's mirror stage of childhood development, when you realize that you can be seen from the outside, when you realize that there's a subjective world, you, and then an objective world outside of you. And this chaos-order dichotomy he talks about is just that. At base, it's order is the self, and chaos is all outside of the self that cannot be controlled. And of course, that is the source of fear and anxiety, and it must be fought. Right in the title of his book, Fight the Chaos. Fight the exterior. Fight everyone else, because they are fundamentally unknowable. They can't have the same objectives as you. You have to express yourself fully on your own terms. No one else can interfere with that. And it's sort of funny in a lot of ways that he marshals this Jungian concept to promote this hyper-individualism, because there's something absurd about someone who posits that there is a collective consciousness that we all share a part of, but also we are totally defined as individuals. Even though he's basically saying that your mind is not fully your own, that it is inherited from generations before you and shared by everyone around you, that somehow you are still a irreducible monad who has to navigate the world as an individual. There's a fundamental conflict there that he doesn't even seem to be aware of. So that is how he deals with the anxiety and tensions of the subjective-objective relationship, which you could almost look at as a dialectic, maybe, that needs to be resolved in a synthesis, maybe a little bit. If that's the case, his prescription of hyper-individualism and cultivating the self and basically not giving up on any idea of influencing the world beyond yourself, fully moving inward, that is doomed. And more than that, it is brutally sterile. You are choosing to imprison yourself fully in the confines of a closed loop of consciousness that basically by definition cannot really change or grow or catalyze anything without outside influence. So the way to defeat this mindset is to say the way forward, the way to find meaning, which is what this is really all about. All these people lost in a postmodern morass of vapid consumer culture and personal capitalist enterprise. The way to make that meaningful is to transcend it by reaching out to, not to fight the other, the chaos, but to find a common cooperative relationship with it, to find similarities across consciousnesses, as scary as that is. That is where you can actually change the world around you, which you have to do, because the things that are generating this unhappiness that he preys on are material things. It is a material base of economic relationships that are generating this. They cannot be changed by cleaning a room or making any individual choice. They can only be changed by collective action. And the way to do that is to unite around common experiences, the exploitation and alienation of capitalism and commodity. Those things are what unite us, and which we can come together across the span of no ability to this scary other, and unite along those axes. And that gives us not only the sense of strength and power and meaning that comes from a true knowledge that you can change the world and your circumstances, but also enlivens your brain. I mean, to think about it. Do you feel more alive? Do you feel more wired? Do you feel more creative? Do you feel more open? Do you feel like you are building and living more when you are by yourself with that endless monologue of self that can only reference itself, can only reference its own experiences, can only reference its own memories, or sharing across consciousness to others who can bring you perspectives and ideas and thoughts and images and that you could never have thought of otherwise. And that's what builds meaning. What builds meaning is engaging with another and then coming to solidarity and a sense of shared purpose, shared plight, shared vision, and trying to build towards it in the real world. That is the only thing that has promise. The individual shit, the cultivate your garden, the fucking faux stoic mystic gibberish will only ever provide transient sense of satisfaction. Because at the end of the day, you're just driving yourself mad by the mundane prattle of a singular stream of consciousness that can't be broken out of. That is the order, and he even talks about it in those senses. The trod path, the mapped territory, the known world. But if you only care and interact with the known world, if you keep the chaos at arm's length always, fight it, or tame it, or slay it, or view it as an intrusion that has to be suppressed, then you're never going to be able to make any meaning that can transcend self-help slogans. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to get that out as sort of an addendum to today's episode. Hopefully someone could put this on YouTube. I don't know how to do that kind of thing. But yeah, That's what I wanted to say. I can hang around a little bit longer if anybody wants to ask questions or have me say something. Fuck off. I've been podcasting all day. My fucking throat is coarse, you son of a bitch. I had a cold and I podcasted. Jesus. There's hope for the Peterson fans who are just lost. The ones who are just looking for another explanation for why they're the best people on earth and nothing should ever change. They weren't convinced they weren't convinced of anything. They were just flattered. The best Carpenter movie is probably The Thing, but my favorite is definitely They Live. Everyone's a grifter, man. We're all on a grift. It's like capitalism. You got to grab what you can. Cartoons are for children. The Midwestern mindset, as Felix actually defined it best, which is the Midwestern mindset is dying of a heart attack while arguing with your neighbor about shoveling a walkway. Can't wait for Ready Player One. Can watch the hell out of it. Probably going to do an episode. I actually hope to go off Kings in California and play a video game. I might actually game in public. History will be made on that day. I hate to say it, but because it sounds obnoxious, but yeah, it is. It's all over Infinite Jest. Turner Diaries is terrible. It's one of the most poorly written books I can think of. It's really written at maybe a 6th grade reading level, which understandable, but the characters are very one-dimensional. Ha! We're gonna do tours everywhere. Hopefully, within the next calendar year of now, we should hopefully do East Coast and Midwest and South. Inshallah. I don't watch basketball. Well, here's another addendum. The postmodern conspiracy thing. That is basically anybody who wants to point to a degradation of people's material standing in the West and rates of happiness and cohesion, sense of purpose, blah, 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 has to contend with why. They have to have a mechanism. And the most obvious mechanism, the most persuasive mechanism, the mechanism right out in the open, is that capitalism has become more brutal and alienating as technology has increased and as rates of profit have dropped. But they can't say that because it undermines their entire world and it necessitates the kind of collective action and change that they don't want. So they need a scapegoat. So it has to be a conspiracy theory. That's why fascism arose. Every fucking working stiff in Europe by the Great Depression was on to the con of capital. They saw the exploitation in front of them every day. The only way to redirect any of that popular anger was to find someone responsible for it not operating out of the logic of capitalism, but operating out of an occult logic of a secret group with nefarious designs who want to destroy the world for uncertain reasons. Reasons that wouldn't really make sense to a regular person, but which make sense to them because they're other. They're Jews or they're postmodernists or whatever. And then they have to claim that culture trumps economy completely and that these people claimed culture and by taking over culture made everything bad. Mechanism is absurd. You can't observe, and there's nothing provable about it. You can't see the results of it by looking at data. If you want to be a fucking logic and reason and facts guy, whereas the fucking case against capitalism is airtight. But they can't go there, so they have to fucking stir up these. I mean, cultural Marxism started it. His neo-Marxism is just the same bullshit. And it's the only way to make sense of a world that has stopped working for people that doesn't indict capitalism. Another thing that I wish I'd gotten into more detail about on the show, so add that as well. My lovely lady lumps, check it out. I wish Gremlins 2 is streaming on something. It's bullshit that it's not. Peterson's he's going to make a ton of money. But he's going to be like any of these guys. He's just going to be a much more successful version. And the thing is, I'm not actually worried about his impact in the long run. People are worried about how popular he is, but he is essentially a political quietist. He says, don't really worry about politics, which, that's like how evangelicals were before Falwell and those guys showed up. That's fine by me. I mean, I'm not gonna be bummed if they all decide to ignore politics. If these narcissistic white boys decide this, good. Because it seems like that's much more a guy who openly condemns the idea of protesting anything. Seems like this is just a way for people to self-help and self-satisfaction for essentially apolitical people. So that's fine. Obviously you want as many people as possible on your side. You like to reach people, maybe energize them who would otherwise go to him, and if there's a vacuum. But I don't think it's the end of the world. He's just going to make a ton of money, and in a couple of years, I predict that his follow-up book is probably going to sell less well, and that'll be it. But yeah, people are saying, oh, you obsessed with Peterson much? Honestly, the whole point of today was to shut the door and not talk about him anymore. And this is what I wanted to get this here so that in one calendar day I could kind of be over with it. Yeah. I mean, people are asking more specific questions, and yes, it's very, very difficult, which is one of the reasons that it's so persuasive and so easy to talk about the self and cultivating yourself, because solidarity, the very idea of it, is no longer something people can think about. It's as alien, explaining previous generations of social activism and solidarity. It really is like talking about feudalism or something to people. It is really a way of life that they don't have any frame of reference to even imagine happening to them. So that makes it very difficult and very intimidating. And that's why the path of individual cultivation is much more seductive. I'm just saying that as tough as it is and as potentially alienating as it is because of all the roadblocks to it, it is the only alternative. All right, I'm done talking about Jordan Peterson. That was my last word on him. I'm finished. We'll put him into the dustbin of history. We might read her book. I know Virgil is interested. Yeah, I'd take a look at it. I won the debate. If it's a debate, I won. A thought and a snack and a hoe, an entire hoe, a nasty, dirty hoe. I'm not showing my taint. All right, I'm going to go about 10 minutes more. I'm going to sign off after a half an hour. So, my wife is in the other room, so don't worry about it, weirdos. Zizek won't go on Chapo because he actually knows about Felix and Virgil and is mad at them because they did over a year ago they did a annotation for Genius of an article he wrote, and he was very unhappy with it and wrote a rebuttal. The Peterson and the texts that they speak in absurd generalities about a specific content that I have brought forth, and that I find that they are not serious in their critique, and they are not serious thinkers, and I must not need to dignify them with a response. But I must say that I do feel that they are not being dialectical in their reasoning, and that they must, in fact, log off. Well, that's the thing. Marxism in the academy is gone. Has been for about 30 years. You don't get any real. You're not. There's no. Very little history is taught through a Marxist lens. It's much more hard pressed to find historical classes that genuinely ground things and the idea of economic class conflict as a driver of history. Literature, maybe some Marxist theory is sprinkled in amongst the other analytical frameworks for looking at literature, but it's not dominant. Nothing in an economics course. Are you fucking kidding me? So anywhere that it's actually would be a thing you would encounter, it's very rarely encountered. I have friends who are in grad school, and they tell me that in political science programs that Marxism is laughed at. The idea of taking it seriously is absurd. And these are grad students. These aren't fucking underclassmen who maybe only heard about Marxism from their right-wing parents or schools or something. So it's absolutely a joke to claim that there's any sort of Marxist domination of the academy. I mean, why the fuck has the world gotten so much more neoliberal in the last 30 years if that's the case? I mean, I remember talking to one of my dipshit uncles, and he kept insisting that we're less free and more socialistic. And I pointed out, what are you talking about? Union density is as low as it's ever been, and the fucking taxes are as low as they've ever been. And his response was, well, unions are bad. And I was like, motherfucker, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, where is the proof that things are more socialist? And it's really just this sense that any diversity in media is socialism. And I think that's a broadly felt theory on people on all sides of the political question that is absolutely wrong and that contributes to some dead-end idiotic fucking political commentary. I didn't like Good Time. Everyone's mad at me for that. I'm sorry. I'm just not a fan of movies where everyone is an annoying idiot. I need someone, if not to root for, someone who's sort of an oasis away from just nonstop thundering insanity. And that's the problem I had with Good Time, or Stupidity. Everyone in Good Time was so dumb that, and annoying at it too, not just dumb, but annoyingly dumb. Like the way they talked was irritating. And they were just, I mean, them stumbling around into escalating catastrophe was kind of funny, but holy mackerel, it wore on me. So, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Three Billboards was fine. Wasn't that great? Wasn't that bad? I'm not really a pog. I got kind of a flat ass. I'm certainly a thought, though. Do not for a second doubt that I'm a thought. I like plenty of movies. Fuck off. Is Death Grips? I think that's rap, right? I don't know. Don't make a Eugene Webb's biopic. Don't make a biopic at all. Maybe make a movie about the Pullman strike. Make historical films about incidents and not lifespans of people. Because there's a limited amount of thematic bandwidth that a film can handle. And if you're trying to do character development and make a character real and credibly show the passage of time while also trying to say something meaningful about a historical period, you're going to be at cross purposes. Make it about an incident, and then you can explore characters through their responses to a specific narrative in history. Little dump. Little dump. There's no fucking Cheetos around here. Don't gaslight me. I don't eat Cheetos. There is a movie about the Chapo election night episode. It's on fucking YouTube. It's called I'm Actually Laughing. You should check it out. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I already gave all Patreon money. We're all taking no salary for the rest of the year. It's all going to Andy McCabe to buy server space for the child porn servers that the FBI runs, which is a real thing. Kendra Lust will be on the trap. I believe in it. I believe in ourselves. I like Brooklyn. I like New York. I mean, it's dirty and it's annoying a lot of the times. And there's no good Italian sandwiches in my neighborhood. But there's still plenty of good Italian sandwiches other places that I can go to relatively close. Episode 1 is interesting. I'm intimidated by that. The idea of doing a character and sort of improving an entire hour is not anything I've ever done before. So I don't know if it was a thing in my wheelhouse. Like if they did one on Civil War reenactors, I think I could probably pull something together for that. But otherwise, no. My favorite Nuglaris beer that I've had is, surprisingly I don't really like their Hefeweiss. The bubbler is it kind of tastes like dish soap. But Two Women I like a lot. That's a good one. And Dancing Man. Those are the two favorites. All right, folks, it's been about a half an hour. I've got my point across. This is still relatively short. Hopefully, this can be spread around, and people on the Jordan Peterson subforum can call me a moron and a neo-Marxist shill for not understanding, because I didn't watch all 10,000 hours of him honking and crying on fucking YouTube. All right. Night, everybody.